Thank you so much, Ebony. Now, if I could sing like that, my sermons would take 3 minutes, right? Yeah. So there is another person other than Ebony who really was excellent in sharing his gifts with the world, and his name is Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein had a few wise words to say in his lifetime, and one of my favorite sayings is this: any man who can drive safely while kissing a pretty girl is simply not giving the kiss the attention it deserves. Now, whether or not we agree with Einstein's words, and frankly, from the bystander point of view, I am much more concerned that the man pay attention to his driving, right? Whether or not we agree, this brings up 3 questions for me that I'd love to explore with you here today. So as we're cruising along in our lives, although I guess since I'm from California, I would say, while we're sitting in traffic, right, in our lives, in this modern age that celebrates efficiency and productivity, that bombards us with all manner of sensory input. First question, what is this kiss that is not getting the attention that it deserves? Second, why is it that we don't pay more full attention to that which we claim we love? And finally, what could be more courageous than a bona fide kiss? 3 questions. First, what is this kiss that is not getting the attention it deserves? Is it the kiss of partnership? And in this moment, perhaps, you might be feeling a desire to be more present to your beloved. Is it the kiss of spiritual kinship? And perhaps in your heart, you would like to open up now to that well of gratitude for what it is that we have and share here in spiritual community. Perhaps it's the kiss of parental love. And you feel an urge within you to be just that much more compassionate and patient when your aging father or mother shares with you the same story that you have heard now 1,000 times. Or maybe it's simply about showing up to your child, your children, or your grandchildren more fully as they share with you what's most exciting to them. That kiss in particular of the parent-child relationship is very key to me in my life. Growing up in the Vietnamese culture, I was taught at a very early age to really honor and respect my elders, and particularly my parents. So part of what this meant is that when either of my parents came home from work or from wherever they were, when they arrived, it was my job to stop whatever I was doing, whether I was building a utopian community with my Lego set, or whether I was teaching English as a second language to my diverse group of stuffed animals. Whatever we might be doing as young children, we stop and you go out to the front door and you greet your father or your mother as they come in. And so I would do this. I would come out and I would say, "Chào bố, bố về à?" And "Chào bố" means, "Hi, Dad." And "bố về" means, "Dad, you're home." And "à" actually doesn't have a particular meaning. It's tagged at the end of a greeting in order to demonstrate respect. chào bố về ạ. Chào bố về ạ. And then I would run up to him and he would lean down and I would give him a kiss on the cheek. So that was one moment I could take in my day. And it was a moment that mattered and a moment I ended up treasuring, throughout the rest of my adulthood. And I think that like most of us, we want to fully embrace these moments in our lives, right? We want to fully open to and be fully present with that which is happening right in front of us, right before us. And so perhaps the ultimate answer to that question, what is this kiss that is not getting the attention it deserves, isn't a particular relationship or situation, but it's the asking of this question that brings us back to the awareness of the wholeness and the bounty and the holiness of this cherished, blessed life moment. So, that leads, though, to our second question, which is this: why is it that we do not give our full attention to that which we claim matters most to us? How is it that we get so distracted by the multimedia in this society, by our own thoughts about the past or about the future, our judgments and our fears? How is it that we can get so distracted that we go off course from our original intention of how we wanted to show up? Well, one possible answer is that the power of intention that unity heralds so much is not actually what it's cracked up to be. And some people, for lack of that intention following through, they start to feel this way. But I actually don't think that's the case. I believe that our intention has infinite power to transform our minds and our lives. The issue is not with our conscious intention. Rather, the issue is with all that is unconscious in that engine of ours that is actually what causes us to kind of veer off course in our driving and miss the target of our kiss. So, to illustrate, I can give you a great personal story in my life about missing the mark, missing the target. So I'm generally a pretty serious person in my life, definitely a very studious person. I'm in ministerial school right now. My fiance, on the other hand, Victor, say hi, Victor, sitting right there, is sort of like, oh, he's hiding now. It's like on this other end of the spectrum when it comes to playfulness, okay? So when Victor posts a video on my Facebook wall, I just assume it's a joke. And so I see it posted, and I take this casual break from my ministerial studies, and I look at it, and there's this man, in a suit. It's like an insurance commercial or something like that. And so I look at it, and the man's basically saying something like, insurance companies should fight for your business. And then there are a bunch of people, like 6 people maybe in the background, play fighting. You know that they're not really hurting each other, but they're not. So that's what's happening. I'm looking at them like, this isn't funny at all, and so I'm like, what do I do? And I look at I check to see who's liked it, and so I see there are a bunch of likes, right? And a bunch of his friends like this, and I just look at it, I'm like, well, I guess they're seeing something that I don't. And then I went back to my studies. Then later, Victor comes home from work, all excited. He's like, did you see it? Did you see my video? I'm like, yeah. And part of me is thinking, okay, I'm thinking about very important things right now, but he's like, and then it dawns on me. I have this moment of awakening. I'm like, oh my God, that's your video. That's the video that they asked you to act in several weeks ago, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, let's watch it. And so we watched it, and oh my goodness, not only was Victor in it, but there are all these people dressed in dark clothes, and he's like in a bright yellow jacket, and he's all over the place. He's not like a dot in the background. He's in the video, and I didn't see him. Yeah. So what happened? What happened? Well, my story about what happened is that I actually feel like I have really strong powers of attention and focus. But the thing is, I came into watching that with an idea about what that video was about. And so I scanned it for what I thought was relevant and then excluded everything else from my vision. It was astounding. I was listening to the man, I was paying attention to him, and not seeing the love of my life staring right back at me. So I'm gonna ask Charlie to show you a slide. I'm not gonna show you the whole video, it's pretty embarrassing. But as you can see, Victor is on the left there. It's not like he's a little dot in the background, but that's enough. Oh, you're in the video. So thank you, Charlie. So anyway, there's a moral to the story. What don't we see on a regular basis, though it's right in front of us? Whether it's because we're not expecting to see it, and so we don't, or whether it's because we are so focused on something else that we miss out on what presents itself to us in our lives. This whole experience reminded me of a quotation by Gilbert Chesterton, which goes like this: "The traveler sees what he sees, the tourist only what he came to see. Be a traveler, not a tourist. Be a traveler, not a tourist." You see, it's safe to be a tourist. You go to some foreign land and at most you're affected intellectually, right? Well, this is a curious thing, and you look at it and you examine it, but you don't let what is foreign affect or alter you. But a traveler goes into the spacious unknown and allows himself or herself to be altered, affected, possibly even transformed by that which the traveler encounters. So to be a traveler, then, to me, requires an immense amount of courage. And that leads us to our third and final question. What could possibly be more courageous than a bona fide kiss? So I'm not going to tell you this time whether I know this from personal experience or from watching a lot of romantic movies. But a true kiss is one in which we're not daydreaming about something else or, heaven forbid, someone else, right? Nor is it, while it's a physical act, nor is it a totally physical act. It embodies our hearts and our minds and our souls too, at least in my view. And then, for me, a true kiss involves total surrender, right? We take down our barriers and any illusion that we had any control, and we surrender fully. Not necessarily to the other person, but we surrender fully to the kiss itself. If we engage in a kiss truly, then kissing is really scary, right? Possibly the only thing that I can think of that is scarier than a kiss is prayer and meditation. Yep. As taught in unity. Like with good kissing, the first step in both prayer and meditation is to relax. Become open and receptive. And then the second step is to focus. So in prayer, you'd be focusing on a divine idea, like the divine idea of love or the divine idea of wholeness. In centering prayer, this gets a little confusing because centering prayer is Unity's primary meditation method. In centering prayer, we would be focused on a sacred word or symbol. It could be the Christ. And this makes a lot of sense because here in Unity, a foundational teaching is that what we focus on grows. So if we focus on God through focusing on a divine idea or a sacred symbol, then we can grow more of an awareness of God in our lives. So that makes so much sense. But that's not the scary part. What makes prayer and meditation scary is this next step in which we surrender ourselves, our conscious minds. We surrender to what Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, those co-founders of the Unity movement, called the silence. Now, doesn't that sound like the name for a good horror film? The silence. Right? But I think it's been used already. So the other description they have is the secret place of the Most High. I think that's equally scary. The secret place of the Most High. Surrendering to the silence is scary because our conscious minds cannot go there with us. It must be abandoned. No stuffed animals can go with us. I have a teddy bear, sorry. Nothing can go with us into the silence. So, the ego now, which is founded on the belief in separation, can't experience communion with God, right? That's why our conscious minds can't go with us. Thomas Keating, who's generally considered the father of centering prayer, describes it as this: it's not just sustained attention to a special word or image or to one's breathing, but the surrender of one's whole being to God. The surrender of one's whole being to God. And to be clear, in Unity, we're not actually referring to God as something outside ourselves, but to a God consciousness that exists within each of us, what we call the superconscious mind. And just like the subconscious mind, it seems like it's outside of us because it's outside of our conscious or ordinary awareness. And metaphorically speaking, it's the place in each of us where divine or truth ideas reside. And then, as we enter and submit ourselves to the silence, we allow these truth ideas to cleanse our consciousness, to clear out our subconscious engine so that our vision and our path become realigned with that of spirit, with the reality of God's bounty in our lives. I know that I certainly experienced this cleansing happening in my own life. After setting a very earnest intention about 8 years ago to know love more wholly and fully. I have witnessed in my life over those years and through today a love that I could have never fathomed, that abounds in such a way that is so profound, that to me is in great part, in core part, why I'm even going into ministry. Because as I'm like, this works. It produces something that is so profound in my life that I had this inclination to share it with others. And one of the most significant transformations that happened for me was in that parent-child relationship, my relationship to my mother and my father. So I shared earlier about how much I cherish this moment that I would have every day with my dad. And the background to that is actually, as a child, I didn't believe that my parents loved me. I didn't believe that they loved me. I didn't think that anyone loved me, frankly. And part of it, when I look back, I can see that there's reason for that, because I'm, as you might be able to tell, a very verbal person. But to this day, I have yet to hear the words, "I love you," from either of my parents. In my childhood, I so wanted like these words of affection, or even like a conversation that was about something other than my grades. I was looking for very specific evidence of love from them. But the amazing thing is, and I don't know exactly when it happened or how it happened, the amazing thing is that today, standing here before you, I can say with absolute certainty that my parents love me and that they have always loved me. I know this in a way that, like knowing God, right? So the question is, what changed? Certainly, maybe it was a little bit of everything. Certainly they've changed over the years, and so have I. But I think what was really core for me was the changing of my consciousness that allowed me to open up to a greater love, a greater, broader seeing and understanding of what love is. And I believe that it started out, that seed of transformation was my pure, earnest intention. The intention wasn't for my parents' love. It was to know love more fully, to know love more wholly. And with that seed that was planted, I've so much identified with the Sufi poet Rumi's words when he said this: "There is some kiss we want with our whole lives, the touch of spirit." And family love is just one expression of that holy kiss. After I set that intention to love more fully, I want to note that I didn't go into the silence going, okay, I'm going to focus on these specific ideas about how I want love to show up in my life. I want my partner to do this, and I want my parents to do that. It's kind of funny, but I mean, some of us do that. But what I did instead was I had to release everything I thought I knew about love, about my own lovability, about what love is supposed to look like and what it really means. I had to even release what I thought I knew about my parents, like who I thought they were, right? Like I knew who they were. I had to let go of all of that in the silence. And then eventually, over time, just like in the video, where I couldn't see Victor, and then I could. I was blind to love, but then I started to see love everywhere. And not just love for me by my parents, but love from me for others. Love within me and love within others. And I started to recognize that this love is in our midst and available to all. So one of the things that I started to see just factually was that as I came to believe in love, I re-examined my childhood. And then when I looked at it, I was like, oh my goodness. These are things I didn't even notice. I was born in Vietnam, as many of you might already know. My family came over here in 1975, a week before the fall of Saigon. So we started anew in this country. And my father, who was an engineer in Vietnam, started out as the janitor at the local sewage plant. That was his first job. And he had a family of 3 grandparents and 5 children to feed, basically. And so he was kind of busy at that time working. And not only that, but he was studying in the evenings so that he could work his way up and eventually became an engineer again. And not only that, but as I look to my past and I see, all of us were straight A students. He tutored us every evening when we got home. These are the kinds of things I didn't notice when I was young. And then my mother cooked and cleaned and did all our laundry so we could study for school. And she occasionally took sewing jobs too when we needed the money. She actually sewed most of our clothes when I was in elementary school. And my mother is beautiful, but I remember when I was a kid, she never dressed up and never wore makeup. And I just realized later in life that this was because all the money my parents made, they spent on us. All the money they made, they spent on their 5 children. So these are the kinds of facts I started to see. When I was blind, but now I see. A tourist sees only what she came to see. A traveler sees what there is to see. It's only the traveler who can uncover what, again, the poet Rumi describes as the 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the earth. In conclusion, I want to reiterate my belief that every kiss should get the attention that it deserves. Also, cultivating our ability to be fully present to the wholeness and holiness of each moment begins with our conscious intention to know God, to know truth more fully. As travelers, rather than as tourists, we can begin our journey by setting our intention and focusing on it, but then we've got to let it go and just surrender ourselves to that kiss. Indeed, a kiss, a bona fide kiss, is one of the most courageous things that we can possibly do in life, is it not? But if you're anything like me, before I'm willing to kiss anybody, or maybe someone I don't know very well, don't you kind of want to ask this question first? May I have your intention, please? Thank you.